In classic Russian manner, Vladimir Putin just signed a law that allows the Russian courts to curtail and decide whether they're going to approve or not the rulings of international human rights courts. The law was published on the official websites of the government today, and it allows the courts to decide whether or not they're going to follow the rulings against them in these international human rights courts. And this is very important because it shows two things. First, that Putin is committed to showing a domestic loyalty to their people, saying our laws are the right laws and they will prevail. Our constitution needs to be respected by the international opinion, the international courts of law. On the other side, we see that these international courts, they have no teeth to force a government to comply. We're talking about 1.9 billion euros of fines that have been imposed out of judgments, and Russia being found guilty of many human rights violations, specifically about the Yukos oil when they took this away from their shareholders. Many complaints, hundreds of complaints about human rights, but they pass a law where they say, well, we have our own courts that are going to decide if this is constitutional in our own terms.
You know, this is centered around the rights, gay rights specifically in Russia, and human rights and the rights of homosexuals living in Russia. They're tied one and the same. So for me, what this says is we have our own laws here. Our Duma makes decisions like the 2013 anti-gay propaganda law that they passed unanimously, 436 votes, I think, to 0 in their Duma. And that's what this is about. Human rights, also the crackdown of reporters and journalists, you know, they lump these issues into one. So they're saying, you know what, we have our own autonomy. You're not going to tell us what to do. You members of the Hague and other international bodies practicing laws, you have no rights here. And it's an exercise of Russia's muscle. And it's fascinating to watch it, but at the same time, it's unfortunate because you're right. The International Criminal Court and the International Civil Courts, they have no measure. They have no measure of exercising these judgments, these statements. They're toothless.
And for me, it's very interesting the message that Putin is sending to their fellow Russians, not only with Syria, and now again defying the international courts of law, saying, I believe in our system, I believe in what we're doing, I want you to believe as well. But in contrast, the European Court of Human Rights says that they received 218 complaints against Russia only in 2014, 122 cases in which Moscow violated the European Convention of Human Rights, and yet Russia decides to pass a law that is effective now, where they will decide if it's constitutional under law to accept the sanctions imposed by them, by these international bodies of law.